At 3 a.m. on Saturday morning, October 27, 2012, my good friend Marshall and I headed south for a surf fishing adventure on the Pacific coast of Baja, California. Departing from my home in the Mount Helix area of San Diego, our first goal was to cross the international border at Tijuana. A mere 25 minutes later, flashing lights signaled an end to United States real estate. After a quick stop at the border to obtain our FMM visas, we were officially and legally in Mexico, headed due south to the first toll road pay booth. High-rises are now a common sight along this stretch of the toll road. Things have sure changed along the northern Baja coast in the past 10 years. As we approached Ensenada, the vision of a giant game of nautical ring toss crossed my mind as we passed the bluefin tuna pens. This stretch of highway was filled with beautiful views of the ocean front as the road stayed mainly on the coast. Traveling through Ensenada gave us one last taste of the hustle-bustle of city life. The mountain and valley views made for a pleasurable drive. After miles and miles of traveling through small isolated towns, an increase in agriculture marked the beginning of the San Quintin area. A short half-hour drive south of San Quintin, and the highway revisited the coast. At this point, the road would head east and mark an end to our ocean views for quite some time. Now we were about to encounter the type of terrain that Baja is truly noted for. As we continued south, the terrain turned into a moonscape. We passed through the little town of Punta Prieta, not knowing just exactly how much this little community would be a part of our adventure. Late that afternoon, we got to our hotel in Guerrero Negro. We'd get a good night's sleep and head off early for our first day of fishing at Santa Rosalillita. After a full day on the road the day before, a few-minute delay in getting to the beach was no problem. We always had to remind ourselves that we were in Mexico now. Being in a hurry just does not work down here. And there definitely was no hurry when it came to the checkpoints. Just about an hour later, we saw the sign that we had long been waiting for. Not far from the turnoff, we saw our first view of Santa Rosalillita.
It is. We might have to go down that other road. Oh no, it goes down to a marina.
This must be the place, we thought to ourselves. Now our next goal was to go in search of the famed spot-fin croaker beach.
I'm coming to spot-fin heaven.
Well, after about 45 minutes of wrong turns and dead ends, we found the right stretch of beach. Marshall geared up and headed down to the shore. Fishing was a bit slow at high tide, but as the water started to drop, the halibut started eating the crocodiles.
The crocodile.
To our surprise, we caught 2 juvenile roosterfish. Who would have thought? Late in the day, just before low tide, Marshall hooks a fish that seems to have just a bit more shoulder to it than the other ones we had been catching. This one bit a sand crab. At this point, Marshall is using a 5-pound fluorocarbon leader, and it seems that the fish is having its way with it.
You see it yet?
Oh yeah.
What is it?
Oh, it's right up in that leg.
What is it?
Spot fin.
Nice.
I think I'm under gun.
After at least a 10-minute battle, Marshall eases the spot fin up on the beach. Our first day on the beach was a great success. We caught 19 halibut, 2 roosterfish, 2 very nice spot fin, and a few other assorted species. Fog greeted us on the morning of day 3. We left our hotel early and headed north again. However, this time our destination was Playa Esmeralda. No one was home at the toll booth. Somewhere between that toll booth and this beautiful vista, my cell phone got switched over to record in black and white. I didn't notice it till we got to the hotel that evening. As it turned out, we did a lot more sightseeing and exploring on this beach than we did fishing. And as a result of the great spot-fin croaker bite the afternoon before at Santa Rosalillita, we decided to head north and see if we could get it to happen again. We arrived mid-afternoon to a perfect tide. Well, Marshall started off with the crocodile, and it didn't take him long to get bit. Looks like the halibut called this beach home.
Not quite ready to give up yet.
There was halibut all up and down this stretch of beach.
Oh gosh. Whoa. Nice one.
After a few halibut, Marshall went back to the sand crab, and not long after was rewarded with another hookup on the right kind.
Take and drag.
We were fishing a cut that was off the beach a bit. As the waves would reform and break, they would churn up the dirty water. The key to getting bit was to get your bait out into the cut, into the cleaner water.
It's a horse. I see it. Do you like these spot fin? Oh no! I'm gonna get washed away.
There was definitely no avoiding getting wet. These fish could really pull, especially on the light tackle. Just when you thought you were ready to pull them up on the beach, they would make another run.
Yeah, they wouldn't be tough on 30 pounds, but oh my God. No. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, that's a pretty fish. Wow. Nice one.
You know, I had another one.
Yeah.
My very next bait after Marshall landed his fish got inhaled immediately. I was not quite the sportsman as Marshall because I went to the heavier tackle, 8-pound mono and a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. spot fin turns sideways in the surf on light tackle, there is nothing you can do except wait them out. This fish had his mind made up that he was going to head north. One last wave and I finally had it headed in the right direction. It was only day 3. And if we didn't catch another fish the rest of the trip, we would have been happy.
A few hundred miles on the Sea of Japan in a sturdy, powered boat seemed manageable. The tanker, who had been captured more
Every time that we made an extended drive, we found it to be very relaxing to listen to an audiobook that Marshall had downloaded. The name of this book was Unbroken, and was the story of a World War II POW. This novel just melted away the hours on the road.
And until recently, only bombing raid on Japan's home islands. The raid had used B-25s, flown perilously off an aircraft carrier under command of Lieutenant Colonel.
Good old lucky number 7, our hotel room in Guerrero Negro. We were looking forward to a good night's sleep and an early start in the morning. As we awoke on day 4, it quickly became apparent that we would be traveling in the same foggy conditions that we experienced on day 3. This day would be devoted to exploring some new territory, especially a beach located north of Punta Moro, Santo Domingo, that goes by the name of Playa Pacheco. This was a relatively short drive before we turned left and headed west toward the ocean. We were immersed in our audio book and enjoying the view.
Storage room dours off their hinges, raided ships' galleys, and crawled up factory chutes. But the men were fed so little,
Cemetery?
worked so hard, that they felt they had to steal to survive. And in one celebrated incident, POWs loading heavy goods onto a barge hurled the material down with such force that they sank the barge.
The fork in the road.
Yeah, that's been our downfall.
And we've gone left every time, and it's been wrong every time. So let's do it again.
Unless we were going home.
Yeah, that's right.
This would certainly not be the last fork in the road that we'd see on this trip.
And we've gone right, and we've lost. We're going to go left. That looks so promising. The road to La Playa. Oh, wise man, which way? Which way?
No.
Okay.
What do you say?
After navigating several more forks in the road, we finally see a good sign: water.
Another fork in the road.
I say left.
Really?
Yeah, I say left. Well, I say left. What do you think? What do you think? Yeah, left.
Left is more traveled.
Yeah, let's go left.
See it?
Yeah.
Look at the tracks there. They're not as
Left is more traveled.
prominent as these. How about to switch from four-wheel drive low back to two-wheel drive? Or to four-wheel drive?
Okay.
Ah,
That was a good one.
Earl Scheib.
To shift from four high to two-wheel drive, push the two-wheel drive four high button in again to turn it off.
I think that it was very apparent that we were learning on the job. But one thing that we were very consistent at was being conservative in our off-road decisions.
Boy, we leave some nice tracks. Look behind us, Marshall.
Oh yeah, we are. Somebody else came here.
Oh, shit.
There you go, crew. Check this out, baby.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Unfreaking believable. We're on the edge of the earth here, Marshall.
Look at that.
That's a great beach.
That's a great looking beach.
Our tour over Punta Santo Domingo took us to some breathtaking views before heading down the grade to a road that led us to this beautiful beach. The beach was a mixture of coarse sand and smooth seashells, and it had a very dangerous shore break. We threw crocodiles for about 30 minutes and caught a few small, interesting looking fish. Driving north along the beach, we encountered literally thousands of shorebirds.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
We also saw signs of just how nature works. Once again, our adventurous nature got the best of us, and we spent more time exploring than we did fishing. When we did fish, though, we caught some nice halibut along this stretch of beach. We then decided to give the spot fin one last afternoon. We fished it hard, but we couldn't seem to get him to bite. This would be our last afternoon in this area, so we said our goodbyes to Santa Rosalillita. Day 5 was to be a travel day, but first thing in the morning we took a side trip to Puerto Carranza in Laguna Guerrero Negro. Marshall could not resist making a few casts in the bay, as there was bait everywhere. In the long run, the locals showed us just exactly how it was done, using sardines they had caught with a throw net. Back on the road, we found ourselves on the stretch of pavement between Vizcaíno and the turnoff to Asuncion. It was the worst paved road we would see on our trip. The road leveled out, and we were treated to a beautiful view of these natural salt flats.
The Emperor has brought peace to the world, he said. The commander surrendered.
Not long after, we were entering the town of Baja, Asuncion.
Welcome.
Wow,
Baja,
look at this.
Asuncion.
Grass and everything.
Our natural instincts led us straight to the water. Well, actually, we missed the hotel and the road ran out. We met with Victor at the hotel, and he said tomorrow would be a good day to go out in his Ponga. We agreed and retired for the evening. We had originally planned this out as a surf fishing adventure, but we had both agreed that if the opportunity came to take out a Ponga, we would give it a go. Victor gave this seaweed diver a lift to his Ponga, and then we were ready to go fishing. We ran a whole 10 minutes before we were ready to put the lures in the water. I think since Halloween was the night before, I was given this lure to troll with. Marshall had a somewhat more natural colored lure. We caught a few fish on the troll, but this one came on a yo-yoed iron. It was very convenient because you could watch the trolling rods and the gas gauge at the same time. Victor's brother pointed out to us where some big calicos live. It was lobster season, and there were plenty of boats and traps around. It was amazing just how many lobsters there were in each trap, especially the amount of shorts that were being released.
That's amazing.
Perfecto. Perfecto.
Our half-day outing produced bonita, yellowtail, dorado, calicos, sand bass, sheep's head, and barracuda, not to mention some very beautiful scenery. But to be truly honest, my mind was really focused on surf fishing, and that afternoon we ventured down the beach to a spot the locals call Chorros. The amount of seashells on the beach simply amazed us. We only drove down the beach about 200 yards when we saw a nice reef in about 2 feet of water. We thought to ourselves, there just had to be fish in it. Small sand crabs were everywhere, and larger ones were mixed in. We started catching fish instantly.
Corbina?
Marshall's second bait was inhaled, and it was game on.
You knew it was gonna happen. Nice one, too. Nice one.
These fish would just not quit. They would give you a great fight all the way to the beach.
What happened to your first cast? Very nice.
We were now catching corbina on almost every cast.
Oh, that took a long time. God, they're really biting. Kirk took one.
We had now caught well over 35 corbina as the sun was beginning to set. We wanted to get off the beach before dark in order to get back safely to the hotel. It was difficult to leave the best corbina bite I had ever seen in my lifetime, but we still had 2 more days of fishing left.
What do you say, Marshall?
Day 7 gave us the opportunity to check out some new fishing spots, not to mention just to take it all in. Well, we went looking and we found more corbina.
Hey, you finally got one, Marshall!
Well, this is the 3rd time I put Marshall through my Videography 101 course, and I'm putting money on the fact that he'll pass it on his 4th attempt.
I got that one soon enough. Whoa. Cookie cutters.
It was just crazy good fishing on the corbina. Later in the day, we ended up at the very first spot that we had hit that afternoon before, and the corbina were still stacked in that cut. were having a problem with the corbina totally swallowing the sand crabs. We had a theory, and that was there were so many fish around that they wanted to grab that bait and swallow it as fast as they could so the other fish couldn't get to it. Next trip down, I am surely going to stock up on an assortment of circle hooks.
That's 20 inches. Who's winning the war? You haven't even had time to put your hoodie on yet. You can't lip them.
It was only the second day on this beach, and we had totally lost count on how many corbina we had caught. We know we caught over 40 on the first afternoon, and they were biting pretty doggone good on this day. Even when fishing was as good as it gets, we didn't hook them all. But sometimes things are just going your way. As Marshall's reeling in his sand crab after his swing and a miss, his rod loads up. Life is good. Day 8 was to be our last day of fishing, but we had caught so many fish, we decided to just get in the truck and drive south and see how far we could get. The first town we visited was Punta Prieta. Now in Baja, there are 2 Punta Prietas. Go figure. This town was the Punta Prieta between Asuncion and La Bocana. You don't drive by many towns along the coast on this stretch of land without seeing fishing boats in the water. A short drive further south, and we entered the town of San Hipólito.
Hipólito, Friday. New lobster traps.
We decided to go one town further south. This took us to the community of La Bocana.
Boca is mouth.
So Bocana is probably
Bocana. Look at that nest.
Do they add on to it like year after year?
Gosh, they must. And that sucker couldn't make it in a week. Tools.
That's beautiful, man. La Bocana. Sport fish progreso. Sport is progressive.
The lobster fishermen were just finishing up their day, and they were arriving in the bay to refuel and bait up for their next day's fishing. This young boy was just putting it to the yellowfin croaker, right next to where the boats were landing.
Oh!
I gave him some lures and some gulp baits. It was the Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead holiday. We drove by the cemetery on the way out of town. Marshall stated that he thought it might be bad luck to film there. It was our last afternoon to fish, so we headed north, found a way down to the beach, and started looking for a hole.
We may get halfway up here and finally can't get back.
We can't get through down the other side.
Well, this was a dilemma.
On that hole. Oh crap.
Oh boy. Careful now.
Are we going to be able to squeeze by
Yeah,
there?
I don't know.
That's the only shot we got.
I don't know.
Off that rock.
Careful now.
We placed a few rocks in the big holes and decided to give it a go. Well, we made it through that tight spot, and then just a little ways up the beach, we found a real nice hole. We caught some corbina here, but it was getting late. Marshall checked his watch, and we decided to head north and end our trip at the very first spot we fished on the first afternoon. With just a few hours left on our last day to fish, things went sideways. We ran over a saturated shell bed, one that looked like 1,000 we had run over before, and we sunk the truck deep. We knew we were in trouble. With the tide now rising, we worked frantically for over an hour, but it was just buried too deep. We went to Plan B. I would hike up to the dirt road to try to find someone to help, and Marshall would start unloading the truck of all our valuables. As I headed up the beach, I knew we had two things working against us. It was getting dark, and the tide was rising. By the time I reached the road, it was totally dark. All I could see was the lights of Asuncion, 10 miles away. I started walking with 1,000 thoughts going through my head. I was debating on whether or not to try to flag someone down or to just try to walk to the city. I figured I would make better time if I would walk 100 steps, then jog 500 steps. About 25 minutes later, I saw a car headed north. I turned on the light on my cell phone and waved, but they just passed. Now I was rethinking my plan to wave someone down. I did not know them, and they definitely didn't know what I was up to.
Then I saw another car headed south. This time I just kept on walking.
Another 40 minutes went by, but I felt like I was making some progress. I kept thinking of Marshall in the truck. He had a large cliff behind him, and I was wondering just how high the tide would get. Then I saw another vehicle headed south, but this one looked different. The lights were brighter. Then two big spotlights hit me. It was the federales. I explained to them what happened, and they said get in the back of the truck, and they would take me back to my hotel in town. The ride back convinced me that I had a lot longer walk than I had originally thought. As we pulled into the hotel, I could see Victor sitting in his office. When he saw the truck pull up, he approached us. I can remember him saying, "What are you doing in a police truck, and where the heck is Marshall?" The police took some information. Then about an hour later, Victor had a friend with a 4-wheel drive Ford pickup meet us at the hotel. We took off out of town to go find Marshall and the truck. But instead of taking the paved road up to the turnoff, we headed up a beach route. I had no idea where we were, and it was pitch dark. I was thinking, the only way I know how to get to the truck is through the paved road to the dirt road turnoff. But lucky for me, we stopped, and Victor shined a flashlight on an old building out on a point. This was the building we saw on our first day of fishing, so now I had my bearings. We proceeded, and I now recognized the road that we were on. We were headed right for the truck. But to get to the truck, we needed to be on the beach, and we were on a road away from the beach. I knew we were pretty close to the truck, but it was so dark. I explained that we were further north when we drove down on the beach, and that we should go back to that spot so we can drive down on the sand. At that point, the truck loses all power. No lights, no engine. Oh boy. The driver gets out of the truck and goes under the hood. He opens it, then shuts it, gets back in the truck, and the engine barely starts. It runs for about 10 seconds and then dies again. I'm starting to think that Marshall was right. I shouldn't have taken pictures at the Day of the Dead. Well, we never did get that truck started. We ended up towing it back to the hotel. We did get Marshall back, however, after his 5-hour stay on the beach at night. The truck remained behind. 4 a.m. that morning was low tide, so Marshall and I were trying to get out as early as possible. We had a plan to meet at 7, but it seems like the boys had a big karaoke party the night before, and it was hard to get them going. We get to the beach on a rising tide to inspect the damage.
Oh, that's a big one, Marshall.
Over the bow.
From the top of the cliff, we dropped down a block and tackle pulley, some chains, and some rope. We drove a half a mile up the beach and then made the long walk back to the truck. When we arrived, I was surprised to see that the truck was almost now completely out of the sand, but there was no way it was going to start. We hooked a chain to the tow ball of the truck. Our plan was to pull the truck up further on the beach and secure it with a rope. The afternoon low tide was not that low, so we could use all the space on the beach that we could get. With each wave, we would get a couple pulls on the pulley. We moved the truck about 15 to 18 feet up on the beach in about 2.5 hours. It took this long because the wheels and brakes were full of rocks and shells, and the wheels were almost frozen. We would go back to the hotel and wait for low tide. A 4-wheel drive Tacoma was the next truck in line to try to rescue us. This time, it was a success. We got it to the dirt road, but the wheels were almost frozen. We towed it to the mechanic, where he would try to work some kind of magic on it to try to get it running again.
Because the dogs like it.
We discussed it over a couple cervezas. Marshall looks like he had confidence in them. Looking things over, I could tell it was a full-service shop.
That's mi mecánico. Ah, yeah. Mecánico Marshall. Yeah, muy bien. Muy bien. Mucho.
A great parts department to boot.
Goodrich.
Just about everything we needed to get the job done. We went back to the restaurant, and over a couple Pacificos, we laid odds on whether they would really get the truck started or not. Waking up early, I knew we had at least a day until we had word on the truck. We were going to have to just hurry up and wait. About 2 o'clock, we walked over to the mechanic's house. We could tell by the evidence that they were working hard. When we arrived, they had a few wires exposed. An hour later, there was more. I can now understand why the wheels felt frozen when we towed it off the beach. They pulled all 4 tires, and this is what came out of each wheel. We decided to let the mechanics work, so we had Victor take us back to the hotel. You have not officially been in Mexico until you've been riding in the back of a truck with a dog chasing you. Looks like Marshall has not quite got over the trauma of being stuck in Mexico. The mechanics actually got the truck running again, so we headed back to the hotel for a good night's sleep with plans on heading for the border in the morning. We had no problem getting the truck started in the morning, but it took me 10 minutes to get the gear lever into drive. It was stuck in park, but we were finally on our way in the fog.
Try to give this guy as much distance as you can, but if you can still see him.
The fog had lifted, and we had now been traveling for over 2.5 hours. The engine was running great, but the electronics were a little screwy. I had my seatbelt on, but the seatbelt light was flashing. The tank was full, but the low fuel tank indicator was lit. We were heading up a dangerous curve, and then it happened. My truck got starved for fuel, and then it stalled. I got down to about 5 miles an hour, and luckily found a small turnout to the left side of the road. We were stuck again. We tried to diagnose the problem. We thought maybe there was water in the fuel tank, so we took out the water separator and drained fuel. That didn't help. At this point, we were convinced we had more problems than just the fuel. We waved down a trucker, and he blocked traffic as he tried to get out a phone call, but he had no cell service. About that time, another police truck pulled up and said, "Wait here, I'll make a report, and someone will come back to help you."
So we set up camp. And we continued listening to our novel.
He felt a swell of nausea. It was a B-24. The first leg of the journey.
About 45 minutes later, 2 young gentlemen pulled up, told us they were mechanics, and got right to work. We felt like they were on the right track, chasing down the electrical through the fuse all the way to the gas pump. But with what this truck had been through, we had our serious doubts on whether they would actually get it started again. This truck was looking more and more like our tow vehicle. It took us 2 attempts to get the truck over the steep berm at the turnout. The truck was just too light. I was standing on the bumper jumping up and down as the tires were spinning and smoking. As soon as we got out in the road, we went 5 feet and his truck stalled. I was concerned that a truck coming up the hill would rear end us on the blind corner, so I got out of the truck and started running down the hill to try to block traffic coming up the hill. I was 60 feet down the hill at the blind corner when I heard the truck start again. I looked up and he was moving. I ran up to the truck and tried to get in the front seat, but the outside door latch didn't work. Still running, I frantically reached to the inside latch and the door opened. I jumped in and we were on our way. Again. Just how many more times would I be seeing this sight on our trip? Now here's something different. A problem. Smallest problem of the trip. We're off and running again. Well, maybe not. Things were smelling a little hot. Good thing we had a couple mechanics with us.
So Marshall, are you going to book another trip with Mitchell Adventures?
Absolutely. I can't wait to do it. It's the best damn adventure I've had in years.
And so what do you think, the girls would enjoy this?
Oh, I think it'd have a great time. Well, I think it'd be loved by you.
There's a lot of room in the back of that truck for two chicas. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, how'd you like that spot fin?
It's a great, well worth every minute.
Now we were really cooking with gas. Things were smoothing out and going our way. My driver even supplied snacks. As mentioned earlier, the town of Punta Prieta would play a large part in our journey. We finally arrived at Danielle's house.
Está aquí.
Danielle wasted no time getting to work on the truck. Marshall and I went next door to Jessica's restaurant for a soda and a burrito.
And that evening we get on the, are you filming me, Drew?
After lunch, we just hung out. Danielle actually got the truck started again for a short time, but there was just too many gremlins in that computer. It was a lost cause. We would have to spend the night in town. I asked Danielle if there was a hotel in town. He said, "No way. You spend the night in our house." We sat on the porch, had a couple beers, and talked for hours. Later that evening, Saai started preparing dinner. We had a few cervezas, and Marshall told stories.
That's attached to the chassis.
We would be eating in style this night.
We will definitely ask her.
It's beautiful esposa.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we say that mucho times. Muy bien. Mucho. Yeah. For Marshall, boo-boo. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
No te cate.
No te cate aquí. Yeah. Yeah.
Primero.
Marshall was still showing signs from the pressure of being stuck in Mexico and missing work. That next morning, we inspected the truck one last time before we headed north. The power of the waves on the driver's side is apparent here. Salt buildup was starting to show on the engine. I have no idea why the computer and electronics were messing up. Saai and Danielle prepared their meals out in this kitchen by the highway. It was time for breakfast. We needed to fuel up for our ride north.
I was thinking I gotta get.
Breakfast this morning was to be venison machaca burritos.
No, it's definitely got a flavor.
A little caffeine and sugar is just what the doctor ordered. Immediately after breakfast, Daniel went right to work building his cactus wood fence around his kitchen. My friend Cliff had arrived, and he was going to give us a ride another 200 miles north, closer to the border. We could not thank Saai and Danielle enough for their hospitality.
Dang, there's the bus.
Once again, we were headed north. It was time to just sit back and relax and watch the
I
scenery,
have 3 trucks in front of me.
and to listen to Cliff tell some great stories.
Well, I pull it aboard and about 45 pounds, 30 pounds. And the tail's whipping their heads.
And to make plans for tomorrow's bus ride to the border.
The bus leaves at the San Quintin for Tijuana.
We arrive at Cliff's house, which is just 20 minutes south of San Quintin. We get set up in his guest house. Looks like we'll have to rough it one more night. We get an early start for the short drive to the bus station in San Quintin.
Where you going, Marshall?
Day 63.
Day 63. San Quintin. Here we are.
We were now one step closer to home. Now there was nothing else we could do except sit back and relax and enjoy the scenery.
Yes, Estados Unidos. You did. Victory, my friend. Victory.